Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Teaching Nonviolent Atonement. My name is Adam Erickson.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Ross.
Suzanne, you know that I have recently been going through a bit of despair with all of the news of violence that is going on in the world. So we're hearing of war in Iraq, continued war in Afghanistan, Syria, and all of the school shootings and shootings in communities throughout the United States. It is all enough to lead me into a sense of despair.
Yeah, I've been right there with you, Adam. It's been hard to keep our spirits up, but I know you met someone interesting this weekend.
Yes, at church. I've been going to this new church when we moved to Eugene, and I met this new guy named David Hazen, and David describes himself as a peace activist. His website is eugenepeaceteam.org, and David has been doing peace work for the last 10 years or so. International Day of Peace is coming up. I believe it's September 21st, so that's coming up in the fall. And David started the Eugene Day of Peace about 8 years ago, and it was just like a 2-hour thing when it began, and now it's exploded into a whole week event of peace. And David was telling me his story during coffee hour at church, and I got to the point where he was talking about all these great things he's doing for peace, and then I said, yeah, but David, the news is full of violence and war. How do you keep any hope alive that we might move into a more peaceful world? And he told me that he looks at the newspaper and he looks at the headlines, which are all about war. He just skims them. And then he gets down further into the paper and he looks for stories of people doing good things for peace. And he says you can find them if you look.
Yeah, they're just not going to be on the front page.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, we feed ourselves with what is on the front page, and it's all about violence.
Yeah, I think that's a really important kind of reading tip that David is giving us, because one of the things we talk a lot about in mimetic theory is maintaining the right distance from the other, from our models, from the people we're engaged with. And of course, we're always, all the time, imitating others and learning what to desire from others, and we're shaped by their desires. And when all you consume is the headlines, which is what's been happening to you and me, Adam, when you consume those headlines, you become shaped by them. We don't realize it. We think it's this, objective act. But we're shaped by them, and we either can be drawn into their narrative, and then we will become violent by picking a side and rooting or, advocating for them, or we can become depressed, exhibits A and B right here, or you can become just disengaged, nihilistic, nothing I do matters, fatalistic, hey, we're all going to end up in a, nuclear explosion anyway. What difference does it make? So those headlines, if that's your only diet, right, you will be shaped by them. And you've been writing recently about Satan and evil, and there's something about gazing at those headlines that relates to what you've been writing about.
Yeah, on any of those things, I mean, despair and cynicism, those are all of the things that I've been feeling. And, David was just a great reminder that there are other stories. We can feed ourselves with these other stories, these more positive stories of people working for peace. One of the other interesting things that David has been doing is he was a lobbyist for the United States Department of Peace, and was working with politicians and world dignitaries in order to try to build this Department of Peace, which is so important project to do, because when you are constantly being fueled by preparation for war and violence, that's the thing that you're feeding off of, and there's no counter story of preparing yourself for peace. And David said that one of the things that he kept butting up against with the politicians was that, yeah, that Department of Peace would be great 20, 30 years down the road, but right now we have more pressing issues, it seems that they were saying. And so David he didn't get cynical, he didn't fall into despair, he just decided that this peace thing is going to have to happen at the grassroots level. And so he took it back to Eugene and decided that he would try to lead a community in this this path of peace, these practices of peace. And so his website is eugenepeaceteam.org. He's also written a book called Love Always Wins that tells his story and where he's been, and his fascinating story about how he's gotten to be where he is at the moment. So I would encourage people to check out his book, Love Always Wins, for that fascinating story. But yes, it can start feeling despair as we keep reading all of these headlines. And I love the way that you put it, feeding yourself a diet of these violent headlines and looking for a different diet of people doing peaceful things. And David, I think, is a good model for that.
Right. Well, and I think the other, there's a couple of things that come to mind. One is that you don't want to become, the other extreme is to become very naive and live in denial, as if there is no violence out there. So you do have to keep in touch with reality, but as David is pointing out, to have a proper relationship with that news of the violence and not become sucked into it. And that's where, I was lobbing you a nice softball there, Don, to talk about Satan and the way in which we create realities by gazing over long, by having too intense a relationship with those headlines.
Yeah, and if you go at those headlines, the danger is that you become just like them. You become the very enemy, the very monster that you're trying to fight. And so what you need is a different model that meets the world where it is, but not on the world's terms.
Yes.
On different terms, which are the terms of, love, forgiveness, love even for your enemies, as Jesus teaches. So that for me is the transformation, where we find transformation, and there are people doing it. That's what we miss. We miss the stories of people like David who are doing exactly that, because all we see are the headlines of people meeting violence with violence. And when you do that, it's like what Martin Luther King Jr. said, darkness cannot cast out darkness, only love can do that.
And we can let the darkness overcome us, or we can be part of that other story. And I think you're right, Adam. And David is right, we need to seek them out and let them shape us and let us help shape those narratives. And then they will just, the truth of those stories will just leaven the world. And that's what we hope will happen.
I love it. Leaven the world through peaceful means. Well, thank you for discussing this with me, Suzanne.
Thanks, Adam.